Okay, we should be ready momentarily. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our May 25th, 2021 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen. We've just concluded an executive session, and in our notice, we made reference to the fact that the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen will enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection C, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the upcoming SEIU contracts, as well as the Juneteenth holiday. So before we begin our meeting, I'd like to read this notice. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via telephone, and comments can also be sent by email to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. So I will now take a roll call vote to enter into a quorum for this meeting. Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So we are now in our meeting. And before we proceed any further, I'd like to ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag
For
of the
republic,
United States of America,
and
To
one
the
nation,
republic for
God,
which it stands,
indivisible,
One
with
nation, under
justice
God,
for all.
visible.
visible with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The first item on our agenda tonight is public comments. I don't know, Kyle, if Mary Maslowski, the town clerk, is here, but if she is in attendance, I certainly want to recognize her. Mary?
Good evening, this is Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I just wanted to briefly touch base. We had a very successful week last week, I think, despite everything with town election and town meeting. Last week on Tuesday, for the first time, we actually used the new poll pads to check in at the town election, and the election workers and the voters all gave us good reports on them. The nice part about it is twofold. One, it let us redirect people. So if somebody showed up at the wrong precinct, the poll pad told them exactly where they needed to go. So we didn't have as much confusion for people that had moved, and for people that may have just been at precinct 2 instead of precinct 4, or vice versa, in where 5 and 6 are both in co-locations as well. So that was a pleasant improvement from last fall, where we did have a lot of people back and forth. So it let us get rid of the old school street lists that were somewhat difficult to use. The other nice part about it was that we were able to close our election the following day. So normally those check-in books that we have in each of the precincts have to get scanned in by hand. So every voter would be scanned in, and it generally takes us anywhere from a week to 2 weeks to upload that information into the voter registration information system. We were able to upload a file. So the nice part was we were able to close out the election, and the Wednesday afternoon by 5 o'clock, we had one ballot that was a provisional ballot that we needed to find out some information on. It was confirmed that it was all set to go. We could count it. So once we got that information back, we were able to close out the election. So I've never had the opportunity to close out an election in 24 hours. So that was a pleasant surprise. So pleased at how those worked. And we are now going to look towards trying to see if we can obtain an additional set of poll pads so that for the next state elections, we'll have the ability to both do check-in and process our early voters or our absentee vote ballots on a poll pad as well. So that's the good news from the town election. The town meeting, we got through it in the same week, and I'm sure we will have some conversations about whether we want to revisit the idea of electronic clickers for future meetings. But you know, I'm pleased to say that the staff and the election workers hung on there and put in a lot of hours last week, and we made it through in time for June 30th, and hopefully the last COVID type election that and town meeting that we have to do. But I can report that we had just about 9% participation in our election. It was 1,849 persons that came out to vote on election day, and our official count for a town meeting was 160. So.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Now, I understand the voter turnout. I know this is a problem with all Cape Towns, but isn't the turnout on average around 10%?
Right around it. It's a little bit under, a little bit over, depending. I was surprised that I guess I was expecting a little bit more because of the contested races and the ballot questions, but you know, we were certainly higher than some towns. You know, Dennis had shortened their voting window and their voting hours and had no contested races. So, so it certainly, I think, justified the reduction in hours. And they ended up with about 5% of people that still showed up. 4.5, I think, was their final total. So.
Well, Mary, thank you for all the work, all the hard work. It was a very, very busy week for you and all the volunteers and all the help that you received in getting us ready, both for the election and performing that, and then obviously town meeting. It's an enormous amount of work, and the board wants to thank you for all your hard work and all their efforts as well.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was a good week. On whole, we got through it. So I'm happy to say that it all got done. So I thank you very much.
Okay. The next person seeking recognition, Joe Glynn. Mr. Glynn.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
I just wanted to follow up with what the town clerk said. I thought that electronic check-in was fantastic also. I don't think I'd go as far as saying that we should, and it's really just constructive criticism and not anybody's fault, but you know, that turnout, Eastham had almost over a 20% turnout with no contested ballots, and I just don't want to be satisfied. I think when early ballots and you know, when town hall can be open, I think we can do much better than even 20%. But in previous years, 13, 15%, you know, on good and bad weather days have been the rule. So I think that 8-9% is a little bit low, and I don't think anybody's saying that it is. But you know, I think the call out, I think we should do a lot more. I think it means a lot to the town, and we should pursue it better. But I don't think it's anybody's fault, and I agree that that electronic check-in was fantastic, and all the staff and Mary, they all did a great job. So I want to give kudos, and I also want to congratulate Selectman Horgan and Mr. Smith, soon to be Selectman Smith. But I want to congratulate them on a good race, and it's all good when people are out and involved, and we get those numbers up more and more. But I also wanted to acknowledge some kudos And for Mr. Murphy and the Board of Health, the Long Pond Plaza for the Yarmouth Housing Authority, we got the second doses for the residents there. And we can't say enough. We're actually sending a letter up to the Stop and Shop Regional because the people, the two pharmacists and a male and a female, Mike was one, and I'm drawing a blank on the other lady's name, but by all accounts, they were fantastic. Even the people that weren't getting shots were going over and congratulating and saying hi to the pharmacist, and they really do a great job. And I think it's great to acknowledge people in the town who are taking care of our seniors and doing a great job and doing it with great reverence and also with they just did a fantastic job. So I just wanted to send that out. But thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations again to Mr. Horgan and Mr. Smith, and have a great evening.
Thank you. The next person seeking recognition is Rachel Youngling. Rachel?
Good evening,
Welcome.
Chairman Forrest. Thank you for recognizing me. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
I am attending this evening representing the Hyannis Park Civic Association. I currently serve as president and also am serving as a community member on the Barnstable Municipal Airport Master Planning Committee. And the executive board of the Hyannis Park Civic Association has worked hard over the last few weeks to create a position statement on our concerns regarding the proposed expansion of runway 1533 at Barnstable Municipal Airport. I did read this statement at last week's Airport Commission, and we would like to make the Yarmouth Selectmen aware of it as well. The following is a statement of conditions over the West Yarmouth neighborhood of Hyannis Park in response to the Barnstable Municipal Airport's proposed runway 1533 expansion. Hyannis Park is a historic residential neighborhood which proudly holds importance as far back as the War of 1812. It was always a residential area dating back to the 18th century. In the 19th century, our beaches became a draw for tourists. During the 20th century, Hyannis Park enjoyed much more residential development. It was during this latter development in the 1950s that Hyannis Park Civic Association was established for the preservation of the area's natural beauty and its way of life as a coastal community. Hyannis Park Civic Association is the oldest continually active community group on Cape Cod. Today, Hyannis Park represents over 500 property owners from the Barnstable line in the west to Mill Creek in the east, and from Route 28 in the north to Lewis Bay in the south. Due to its location south of the airport, Hyannis Park has experienced excessive noise pollution from airport operations on runway 1533. For over 30 years, the Hyannis Park Civic Association and its members have engaged with the airport about safety and noise concerns, but we feel ignored by the Airport Commission and airport management. Noise complaints are dismissed as being the work of quote unquote chronic complainers, or individuals quote unquote having a bad day, or residents with their windows open in the depths of winter. Complete and utter frustration with the airport's response and disregard for our complaints has resulted in a sharp decline in the recorded complaints. The airport in turn complains that it is the same individuals who are lodging these complaints. Airport responses to noise complaints often reference that pilots are flying with instrumentation, but this does not explain the wide berth pilots are choosing around the recommended flight path. We fully understand that the airport must conduct their business. The question has to be, why do West Yarmouth residents and businesses have to bear the brunt of the incessant noise from this aircraft? With the proposed master plan, Yarmouth residents will face more air traffic and noise, but zero revenue or benefit from the proposed expansion. Hyannis Park and its sister neighborhoods of Ocean Harbor Estates, and Gristmill Village will suffer even more under the planned runway expansion. The research and resultant marketing plan that the airport and its consultants cite must be scrutinized. It is based on an extrapolation of the nationwide FAA data and credit card zip code data from travelers through Boston and Providence. There has been no local needs assessment study on the desires of Cape Codders to see an expansion at the airport. This appears to be a case of, if we build it, they will come, rather than a sound analysis of the true needs of local residents and the community. We recognize that the airport operates as an enterprise fund grantee and must therefore cover all of its expenses. However, we strongly disagree that Yarmouth should bear the brunt of the expansion's deleterious noise increases, decreased quality of life, and increased crash concerns, while Barnstable bears all of the benefit. And a brief note here, all of the crashes that have happened in recent years approaching the airport have happened either in Lewis Bay or on the other side of Great Island, approaching our community. We demand that consideration of the airport's runway expansion include the harm that its development will certainly have on Hyannis Park and its residents. We have endured over 30 years of interruption to conversations in our home and in our yards. We will not be shuttered away in our homes as the airport's callous suggestion of just closing our windows. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you in regard to the proposed expansion of the airport.
Thank you very much for those comments. It would be helpful if they're in writing, it would be helpful to submit them to the board as well. We're very interested, obviously, in the comments that Yarmouth residents have about this project.
That would be my pleasure.
Thank you. The next person seeking recognition is Mary Vilbon.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Mary Vilbon, Executive Director for the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Chairman and Selectmen, I do have 2 updates for you this evening and 1 point of clarification. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the recent town meeting, but during the meeting, there was a statement and a brief discussion that the Tourism Revenue Preservation Funds were used for the operation of the Route 6 rest area located in Barnstable under the contract between the Chamber of Commerce and the town. This statement was not accurate. The Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce manages the Route 6 rest area in partnership with Mass DOT and Barnstable County, not through the Tourism Fund. The restrooms are funded through a grant provided through Barnstable County, and the Visitor Center is funded, staffed, and operated and maintained by the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce. The only use of tourism funds at that site is for a sand sculpture, which is part of a nationally recognized sand sculpture trail that attracts thousands of people to Yarmouth every year. If there are any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them about those funds. On another note, I wanted to bring you up to date that it is the 10th anniversary of the sand sculpture trail. If you haven't seen, we have 8 sand sculptures already built with another 23 to go. So we're very excited about that. We have also decided to open up the Route 28 Visitor Center 6 days a week. We are open currently Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, and will be open starting this weekend on Saturdays, 9 to 1. We have certainly seen an uptick in visitors on a consistent basis for the last 3 months in a row, over 1,100 visitors from states across the country that are already visiting us. And then I also just wanted to remind all of our local residents and second homeowners that you can get your beach and dump stickers here at the Visitor Center during any of those hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the comments. And the next speaker to be recognized, Ms. Vita Morris. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
We can hear you. Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Good
okay.
evening.
I just want to go back on a couple of issues to the town meeting. I wish that the Board of Selectmen and the moderator would tighten up the rules about who is allowed to speak at the town meetings. As I understand it, the law is really states that the town meetings are for the residents of a particular town. And certainly the voting and what have you is only for those who are registered voters in town. But the speaker, I mean, the only reason that Ms. Venkatesan was able to speak at the Dennis meeting is that it turns out she's a resident of Dennis, because Dennis runs a very tight ship over there, much more so than we do, and they make very sure that anybody who is not a resident and attends sits somewhere way in the back somewhere where they are not part of the rest of the group, and there's no chance that they will vote or anything like that. Now, what we had here on Saturday, I guess maybe we didn't have any people who weren't there to vote and participate fully, but because there was no place that these kind of people were to be sitting, I guess, outside there. I guess in the there's some attempt being made indoors in the auditorium, but very often people have seen people who are even from out of town are being invited to sit among the rest of the residents. So I hope that this thing will end up being a little better regulated, and as I said, as to allowing people from outside the residents to speak on any issue. I mean, if we can't find local people to propose and carry through with a particular issue, then perhaps that issue is not as important as some people think. The other thing that I was, and now I kind of lost my train of thought here, but I guess I'll just have to let it go for now. But
Thank you.
that's it. I think I'll talk about whatever I had in mind the next time around. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, that concludes public comments. The next item on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, there is one more. Mr. Tom Nicanello
Oh.
is also seeking recognition.
A last minute hand raiser. Mr. Nicanello.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow select board members. Thank you very much. Tom Nicanello from the very historic village of Bass River. As you know, Mr. Chairman, is about 277 years ago, we had a Yarmouth citizen named John Sears that was born here in town. And he had a nice career being a sea captain. And when he retired from being a sea captain in 1785, he birthed the salt works and put Bass River on the map as one of the producing, manufacturing, utmost salt companies that we had at the time. And we're very grateful for his innovative and ingenuity that put Yarmouth on the map. But just to make a couple of comments real quick, I know you have a very busy agenda. In your agenda too, you have the Parkers River Bridge, Mr. Chairman, and being a resident on that pond, Swan Pond, I can tell you that the flow of that river with the girth of the new bridge has done a dramatic cleaning to the north side of that pond, and it's just wonderful to see the breath of fresh water come in and out of that bridge, and we all hope that it succeeds. And whatever these people need to do to get that project done, I guess we encourage you to let them work until June 18th. I think they're doing a wonderful job and it shouldn't impede in the holiday. Next up, I just wanted to mention town meeting. I guess that's what we're talking about today. I believe it's going to be, hopefully Mr. Lawton won't mind not sitting on the stage in the fall. This should be his last town meeting. Thank you, Bob. But they keep me involved with the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Chairman, because I think out of the box. And I was thinking maybe, we have a wonderful site, that drive-in site. Maybe town meeting, we could all show up in our cars and tune the radio into 10:30 and sit in our cars and have town meeting. And you guys can sit on the stage there. Maybe that would draw more people. I'm not sure, but just a crazy idea. And you also have in your packet tonight about the IT department head. As you know, Mr. Chairman, it's a very critical position in our town. And I'm sure Mr. Coffey's done do a great job. With that, thank you all and looking forward to a good meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Nicanello. I believe that now concludes public comments. The next item on the board's agenda is a COVID-19 update for Yarmouth from our health director, Mr. Bruce Murphy. So, Cal, can you bring in Bruce? Bruce, are you there? Okay, we have the slides, but we don't have the health director.
He was just in the attendees and I promoted him and he seems to have disappeared.
Okay. Well, let's give him a minute to come back in. There he is. Yeah, he must be in town hall. This is like the Bermuda Triangle of IT. There he is.
There we go. Am I on?
Yes, you're here. We can see you and we can hear you. Welcome. Sorry about that
Thank you.
problem with getting you on.
Yeah, a little slow getting on. Thanks for Kyle. I think he helped me get on, so that was helpful. Bruce Murphy, Director of Health. Glad to be with you tonight again, Board of Selectmen. As we can see, our graph that our third wave has gone way down, which is great. I don't know if that comes up just a little bit more, Kyle, but the bottom of the graph just shows that we were down to one case the other day, and it's been 7 months between last time we had one case, which was back on October 21st from the May 24th. So obviously, as my last update said, we're going and heading in the right direction. So that's very positive news. And I think it's a combination of people getting vaccine, people taking precautions, and more people outside. As we can see earlier in the pandemic, we really leveled off during the summer. In May, June, it started leveling right off. And then even last year, we had a number of days zero. So we're hoping we're returning to that. With all these precautions I just mentioned, we're hoping we're returning to that least number of cases. Okay. Where do we sit by our age group? If we just go down so we can look at the bottom number a little bit, Kyle. Ooh, keep going. There you go. The total. If we look at the total that out of our population of 24,000, we've had at least with one dose into approximately 16,000 people, which is 66% of our population. So we're getting there. That's up another percent from a week, and now they're all going up a little bit. So I think that's very positive. I think if we break it down a little bit more on our next slide, individuals that are getting doses by the week, we kind of broke it down this year. This week, the state added a new category, 12 through 15. They did not have before. And then within that age group, we had 59 children within that age group vaccinated. And you can still see in the age groups, and it's good that they're down a little bit, but we're still getting, somewhat steady in that 30 to 49 age group. And if we go all the way down, Kyle, we'll see the number of been vaccinated by the week, total decreasing, but it's staying steady. So I think the results will continue. Thank you. How does I just wanted to look at how Yarmouth looked. We pulled some graphs together and made this new graph. And if we kind of look at the bottom where Yarmouth is, I had mentioned we're at 16,000 of our population with at least one dose at 66%. And that's kind of matching up with the other towns that you see. Sandwich is only at 60% right now, and Mashpee's at 60%. Harwich is 72, Falmouth at 70. But we need to consider Falmouth has the fairgrounds and they're running a vaccination clinic on a regular basis. And then, with Brewster and then Bourne and Barnstable, a little bit, seeing that. So I think all the towns are moving right in that right direction. So I think that's a positive when we look at how do we match up getting the vaccine out to our public. It's becoming available, and that's a good point to get out to the people. Okay. COVID cases as of yesterday, we only had one active case. And like I said, that was a number of, what did we say, 7 months since our last case. We only had one case of last October. So that's very positive news. Okay. So the last time, as I mentioned, the one active case 7 months ago. Now today we're up to 3 cases came in today. 2 children ages 9 and 12 in the same household, and then a separate household. We had a 68-year-old person come in positive. So things can change quick from 1 case to no cases to 3 or 4 cases. Okay. Prior to that, we had gone 7 days with no positive cases from May 17th through May 23rd. Those days allowed us last Friday to drop down to a green community. We had moved out of the red high risk down to the yellow, then we moved to green, which the next step down would be, the lowest step would be gray, which several of the Cape Towns now are gray or green. So I think the progression we're making is with these 7 days of no positive cases, that we're hoping that will go down to the lowest rating or reading by the state of gray. Okay. Hospitalizations have decreased. We're over here to May 24th of yesterday. There was only 2 people in Cape Cod Hospital and 1 in ICU. Good news that it's down. Bad news they're in the hospital, but good news that the numbers are down. But if we go back to the beginning of April at the first part of the chart, you can see we had 26 people in Cape Cod Hospital, 23 people. And then even back to March 29th, there was 30 people in Cape Cod Hospital. So I think the trend, as we can see going down towards the middle of April, and then even to the last week or so, that the people are not going to the hospital. It's not being that serious to put them into the hospital. So that's good news that we're following also. Okay, as we go into vaccine, the end slides that I show you each week is where people can get vaccine. It's becoming readily available to the point of walk-ins or getting a prompt appointment within a day or so. Calling Cape Cod Healthcare are getting on their website right here. Okay. The Melody Tent, you can call them. They're doing Wednesdays. They're also doing weekends, so you can call them, make an appointment. Sometimes they'll let you know when the walk-in hours are also. Okay. Harbor Community Health in Barnstable, also running a clinic at their facility, and also at the Barnstable Seniors. They're running 2 facilities during the day. You can call them, and I know you can get an appointment, and they can also tell you when the walk-in hours. From talking to a few people that have been over there and either working there, it's readily available to go right in there. Okay. CVS up on our Station Ave, again, very prompt appointments. You can get on their website right here, and you can get something scheduled very promptly there also. Also within town is Walgreens in South Yarmouth and Yarmouthport. Again, very available to make appointments, and they also have the J&J available for walk-ins. So as we can see, vaccine has become readily available for people within the town. I would say at this time, we're right here, we did have a clinic at the high school Friday. I was able to coordinate one up there, and we had 178 people attend, which included students, their parents, And we had some extra vaccines, so I reached out to the Council on Aging so they could send out a blast, email blast to their people of over 2,000. And I also reached out to the Chamber of Commerce so they could send people if needed also. So we did send it out around the town along with the town workers and so forth that needed to take available. We had one student come by. A girl had just finished up her lacrosse practice. She came in, which was great to hear. And I asked her where the rest of her teammates were. And she said pretty much all her teammates had already been vaccinated. So a couple people I talked to, school-age students, have already had their vaccination. So that was very positive. So it's a very positive clinic at the high school. And we'll be back there in 3 weeks to give them their second dose of Pfizer. Okay. As we know, the governor's reopening. This was a release put out by the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce that keeps the business community well updated of all the regulations going out and updates. This is one that went out last week about what's happening effective May 29th, this Saturday. Pretty much what the governor is removing all restrictions and lifted on Saturday. And we're really, let's say we're back to normal. So does away with the masks, social distancing. So I think that's positive. The only place you still need a mask is at hospitals right now, doctors' offices, and nursing homes right now. So they're going to fine tune that. They should be coming out with just some limited places that masks are needed. But in general, restrictions are all removed on this Saturday. I have talked to several businesses in town that called. Some of them felt like some of the smaller inns still wanted to have their employees wear masks, which I said was fine. On our town side, town administrator Bob Wittenauer has his opening task force committee that's been meeting. We also toured 2 of the libraries, the rec building, water department, DPW last week, just to see how they were going to go into the opening. The libraries are tight, but they're going to be ready to do it. They be like a kind of an opening that will have precautions because they'll probably still leave the plexiglass up. And there's a couple employees, whether they're in town hall, that might still wear masks. But the reopening plan and task force has been working and also meeting at town hall here and did a walkthrough. So I think the plan that's been shaping up by the town administrator to get everything opened for when we come back, everything will be open on, we're looking at June 1st, June 2nd to have town hall open. Okay, last slide. We're just still reminding people, know the facts, get the vax. So with that, if you have any particular questions.
Let me go around the board. Thanks, Bruce.
Yes.
Mr. Horgan, any comments, questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Murphy, chart that was showing the number of residents that have been vaccinated in percentages. That count, is that the entire population count of Yarmouth, or is it the population that is eligible to get shots?
That population counts is from the census provided to us from the census.
Sorry, did you hear that? I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry. The population that's on the chart is provided to us from the census count that we have with the state. These numbers all come right from DPH.
Okay, so because am I wrong? For under 12, are vaccines available for under 12?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
That's why we redid the chart. The state just came out with a new chart, ages 12 to 15.
Okay, you've been doing the Johnson and Johnson. Any local cases of difficulties with that vaccine?
Not that we've heard of.
Okay. As always, appreciation to you and your staff for the great job you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have to say, I do have to acknowledge Phil Renault, our one of our inspectors that keeps track of the COVID every day and posts it. As you know, you get a copy of it each day, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health. So he puts a lot of time into that each day. Thank you.
You're muted, Mark.
Sorry about that. Tracy, do you have any comments for Bruce?
My only question, and as time goes on, I'm sure there's more data, but have you been able to ascertain any effectiveness with any of the shots? Basically, are any of the positives that we have or have had fully vaccinated? And also the variant. Has there been any data around any of that back to us specifically yet?
No, it hasn't come back to us specifically. Early on, we did have a couple people that had the vaccination did come down a second time with COVID. Not as serious, but we have not been notified of any second cases in over a couple months.
Okay. And if we did, would we be able to find out which vaccine they obtained originally?
Yeah, that I don't know. They haven't. Yeah, they haven't provided that data to us yet. They usually just say you've had a second case.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm very happy with the progress that we're making. Sometimes I feel like one step forward. I can't wait for Phil's email every day, and I saw one, and then today was 3. So. 1, 2, let's hope with the lifting of the restrictions. I think now, I guess, just from my personal experience and most of the people who were around, I think, a year has been a long time with those restrictions, and it kind of changes your behaviors to some extent. So hopefully we won't see an influx of numbers once the restrictions are lifted. Hopefully people will still keep their distance if they're inside. And so we'll keep our fingers crossed. But, I think over the next few weeks will be very interesting for all of us to pay attention to the numbers and hope that we don't start that 4th wave we talked about so long ago that I, for the life of me, couldn't figure out how they could foresee that. But in any event, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Selectman Stone.
Bruce, thank you for the update, and it's encouraging news, that's for sure. Everybody is COVID weary, myself included, with all the restrictions that we've had for more than the past year. But it seems to me that the relaxation of the precautions is not without a caveat. And here's what I mean by that. I think if I don't want people, especially vulnerable people, and especially vulnerable people that haven't been vaccinated, to think the coast is clear and everything is back to normal. Because you're still going to have to wear the mask in medical facilities, doctors' offices, hospitals. That's sending some kind of a message. You're still going to have to wear it in congregate care settings. You're still going to have to wear it in public transportation systems. So that tells me that even though the risk probably is substantially reduced, it has not been eliminated. Is that your take as well?
I agree. Yes. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that you're right, that aren't able to take the shot because of their own medical conditions and so forth. And there's still a lot of people nervous out there because, COVID will be with us, but we hope it's going to be at such a low number it's not affecting. But there are people that are concerned out there for sure. And you'll probably, see them or, wearing a mask at different locations, whether it's the grocery stores or shopping or so forth. So you are correct.
The other thing I wanted, it could probably calls for an opinion on your part, but there's some talk that there'll be some legislation to extend towns, if they wish, to continue to have virtual meetings through September, even though the pandemic is supposedly officially over in June 15th. If that legislation passes, do you have any recommendations, or even if they're speculative at this point, as to what would be the safe, would it be safe, in your opinion, just go back to regular meetings, or would you recommend taking advantage of that opportunity if that legislation passes? And I believe it probably will.
Yeah, it's good. It's good points. I mean, these hybrid meetings are very good. People can watch, people can talk, come in and look. If the boards don't feel comfortable coming in right away, it's a good way to start. But also we do have a large meeting room here, as long as it's probably not packed in, where people might feel uncomfortable. I think there's a couple options to look at, and I think that's something that the town administrator and the board can, discuss as we go forward.
Thank you very much for the update. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. I have no questions. It's great to see you, and I echo Tracy's comments about the optimism looking ahead.
Can I
Sure.
just add one thing to Mike's comments? I think
Tracy,
that
let me just let Dan, he's got a quick question, then I'll come back to you.
Bruce, are we tracking vaccinated groups and minorities? I seem to be reading a lot where the percentages are much lower in certain groups. Are we tracking it, and are we doing anything to either increase percentages or education?
That question came up with the county health agents director's call today. The county nurses are looking into that. They feel that we're getting the message out as best as we can, and there might be more education we can do out that to let people know about the vaccination opportunities.
I just wanted to follow up on Mike's comments about the remote participation. I think that, I know our board has adopted that way before there was a state of emergency. Hopefully a lot of the other boards are, and I think people should do what they're comfortable with, and we should work towards allowing that. There are people, as Mike said, that are, vulnerable or not vaccinated for whatever reason, that should still be able to participate in meetings, whether it's this meeting or meetings of any committee, whether they're on it or just want to participate from the public's perception. So I'm hopeful that the town will work towards kind of a hybrid going forward for all committees, where those that feel comfortable coming in can do so, and those that want to participate remotely are able to. I'm not sure if all the committees have taken the vote to allow for participation remotely. The only hesitancy with that would be the people that move away or don't live within Yarmouth and continue to participate on the board from another state for a long period of time. But while this pandemic goes on, I think we should do the best we can to work to meeting everyone's needs, both in person and remotely together, so not to alienate anybody.
Very good. Bruce, thank you, and good night. Okay, the next item on the agenda for the board is the visioning update from the planning board. I see Joanne Crowley is here. We certainly want to get her before us. I don't know if she has any other guests she wants to bring before us, but Joanne, you're gonna have to unmute yourself, Joanne, if you can. That's great.
Good evening, Chairman Forrest, members of the board, Mr. Rittenhour, Mr. Lawton, and any members of the public who may be joining us this evening. My name is Joanne Crowley, and I am Chair of the Planning Board. And I'm pleased to provide this visioning update to you this evening. My thanks to our town planner, Kathy Williams, who will be joining me in making this presentation this evening, and to Kyle Pendicini, who has been an ongoing sidekick of ours during this process and is our technical agent tonight. Thank you, Kyle. You're always there helping us out. I appreciate that. Materials in your packet have include, of course, the cover memo from me representing the board, which I think provided a fairly brief but concise summary of our work so far. Thank you. And it also includes a vision statement and goals, which I'm going to review in a presentation tonight, these draft vision statement in each one of these in our presentation. And it also provides the presentation for you for reference purposes. What your packet did not include, but which I'll be showing at the end of the presentation, is a sample of our survey. The outcome of where we are right now is that we want to be in a position to launch a final survey for outreach to the community by June 1. So with that, I'd like Kathy to begin our presentation by telling you where we've been, where we are right now, and then I'm going to jump back in and give you some summary of what our work has resulted in so far for the vision statement and our goals, and then brief you on a preview of the questionnaire. So with that, I'd like to ask Kathy to join us and walk us through where we are. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Joanne. This slide's in here for those people who may not be overly familiar with the Visioning Project, and what we're really trying to do is find out what Yarmouth wants to be like in the future. And kind of why are we doing this? Because it's really going to help us create that vision statement that tells us what our core goals and objectives and values are for our community. And it will help guide the Board of Selectmen as you move forward with future decisions. And it will also help the Planning Board as we embark in updating our local comprehensive plan. So the next slide, Pat. Thank you. So as you all know, last fall and winter, we had a very detailed public outreach and engagement plan where we were able to receive 470 responses from the community. We had a community survey that was out from November 2020 through January 15th of 2021, and we received 382 responses. We also conducted 3 virtual workshops, which was very interesting, led by the facilitators of the planning board members. We had 82 participants at those 3 different workshops that we had. And we also conducted a business roundtable because we felt we really wanted to be sure that we heard the business community in this visioning. And we conducted that on January 27th, 2021. Next slide. So what were we asking people? We were asking rather open-ended questions about what are Yarmouth's strengths and assets, really what do you value most and want to preserve for the future, and kind of what are our challenges? What aren't we doing right? What do we need to be working better and doing better on? And then ultimately, what is your vision for Yarmouth? And are there any opportunities that you might know to help us reach that vision? Next slide, Kyle. So those are the questions we asked. So what did we hear? Because the questions were very open-ended, we received 1.5 inches of comments from everyone. And I can't say thank you enough to all the people who participated in the workshops and in the surveys, because this information was extremely valuable to the planning board and the process that we're working on here. We were able to, with our consultant Horsley Witten, summarize what we heard into 15 major themes. The ones that are in blue are ones that received the most comments. I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the things that we did here. The history and culture, people were very happy with our historical areas, our historical districts. There's a lot of conversations about Route 6A, the Captain's Mile, the Bass River Historic District, all of our different places like Bray Farm and Judah Baker Windmill. So people really wanted to preserve those and build on those, and also including more support for the arts. The next item that came up significantly was recreation. People were very happy with the diverse, family-friendly type of recreational opportunities in town. They talked about the parks and the playgrounds and Flax Pond and Sandy Pond. There was some comments of concern with overcrowding at Grays Beach, which I know that you as the Board of Selectmen have been trying to address recently. One new item that came up was the possibility of a community center with an indoor pool to expand the year-round recreational opportunities in town. So that was something that I personally hadn't been hearing from the community. The next item is obviously our natural areas, open space and conservation. People spoke about that a great deal. Our beaches, our walking trails, all the different open spaces, Bass River, Parker's River. The only comments they really had with regard to that is they'd like to see them better maintained. So that was an interesting comment as well. Social networks, that was really all of the social networks, the churches, the clubs, the events, the celebrations, like the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Seaside Festival, all the things that provide the connections amongst ourselves and help create that small town feel that people really liked about Yarmouth. Some comments that came out was a feeling of a lack of diversity and inclusivity, especially with regard to not having a lot of young families or young people in town. The next is affordable housing. People seem to be appreciative of the current affordable housing efforts, but they really felt that we needed more affordable and workforce housing, and concerns with the cost of living going up and exceeding wages and making housing unaffordable. Age-friendly. Lots of big shout outs about the senior center and the different programs that are offered there. People really want to have that welcoming, livable community for our seniors, access to a lot of different programs and services, and also more multi-generational programs, getting the different generations together. Municipal was another heavily commented on item, and there was actually a lot of strong shout outs for a large number of town departments, the police, the fire. People felt very safe in our community, the DPW, recreation, as I mentioned, the senior center, the libraries, and quite a bit of compliments to the transfer station. That was a little bit of a surprise there. There was a good feeling of COVID-19 communication and response. Some comments that came out of the surveys was the maintenance of town buildings and facilities, keeping up with the maintenance so they don't become too deteriorated, resulting in the need for a complete replacement. All these upcoming capital projects and concerns with taxes. And people generally seemed like they understood that wastewater was something that we needed and was going to be coming in our community. Location on Cape Cod was just commented on a lot, where people really feel like we should be capitalizing on Yarmouth's central location on Cape Cod. Land development and town center, people commented that they are seeing some improvements on Route 28, but there was concerns about the poor aesthetics of Route 28, some of the density, and the lack of a defined town center or defined town identity for our community. There was discussions of maybe trying to create that through a new town center, which could also be like a new town green or town common, different ways of improving our business corridors, but also trying to balance redevelopment with conservation. Economic development, that one's in blue, and that was discussed quite a bit. People commented how they did enjoy our local shops, restaurants, and the family-friendly entertainment. But they commented that we really need to start attracting new and more diverse businesses, something that would provide more year-round jobs, and redeveloping Route 28. And during the business roundtable, talked of improving the relationship between town hall and the business community. The technology and broadband access, people really felt we needed to have reliable Wi-Fi and easy access to broadband, and felt that that would help promote people working at home and also promote businesses. Sustainability, there's a lot of positivity with regard to our being part of the green communities and some of our renewable solar projects. People were concerned about the threats of climate change, beach erosion, sea level rise, stresses on our drinking water, and also trying to find ways where we can just reduce our community's impact on the environment. Connectivity and mobility is kind of related to how we get about town. There's a lot of great shout outs about the Cape Cod Rail Trail that was very popular. Some of the comments were wanting to be a more walkable and bikeable community, and having maybe more bikeways or shared use pathways along roadways, improved overall safety, and also more access to public transit. With regard to public health, people again felt there was good support during COVID-19, but they felt like there could be improved access to social services and mental health services, and especially related to addressing substance abuse. And the last main theme that was identified had to do with education. There was a good support for our town schools, but there was also the discussion of a need for new facilities, concerns about the tensions with dentists, and the desire to provide educational opportunities for all our residents of all ages. So the planning board kind of took all of this information and worked for several weeks to kind of digest it and come up with a way that might be a little bit more user-friendly and more digestible for the community. And I'm going to hand it over to Joanne to give you an overview of what we came up with.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks, Kyle. One of the challenges for the board of 7 smart, interesting, compassionate people about the town is trying to gather all of what Kathy just said, and all of the interests and questions and concerns that were identified into and organize the topics, if you will, so that they could be organized into a clear and concise and easy to communicate kind of boundaries on what we're looking at. And we landed on this simple approach that was suggested by a couple of the members of the board about Yarmouth being a place where we live, where we work, where we play, and where we learn. And what are the most important things about it that we want to set some goals towards? Preserving, promoting, and providing. So this is kind of our vocabulary, if you will, that we established to try to wrap around a consistent use of words, to try to make the messaging here as clear as possible, because this topic in particular, visioning and mission statements and the like, and goals and objectives, you can get lost in the weeds pretty quick. So this is how we landed. We think it works so far. And we have in your packets, you'll notice how we have organized many different vision statements under these headers. So these are our headlines, and we have particular vision statements about those that we've included in your packet. And I'd like to go through those now. So as an example, we have Yarmouth, the vision statements associated with Yarmouth as a great place to live. We want it to be a town that improves and protects its environment, a town that enjoys a strong sense of community and fosters belonging and inclusivity, that we care about each other, especially those who are more vulnerable than us, that we are able to offer and support quality housing for all different types of housing, that we have an aesthetically pleasing, that it's an aesthetically pleasing place, that our residential developments look good, that our commercial corridors can look as good as they can be, and that we preserve and protect and keep our historic districts in the best condition that we can. As another final example, we want Yarmouth to be a place in a town that minimizes adverse impacts on the environment through our various planning efforts and mitigation. So these are vision statements that we think encapsulate the idea about the most important aspects of living here. The next category, if you will, about working here. Well, what are the most important things that would make Yarmouth a great place to work in, to own a business? And Yarmouth, we would envision it to be a town that has a thriving, diverse year-round economy with all sorts of different kinds of businesses and employees. That it continues to promote some of our strengths that we know of and that our community fed back to us and echoed to us, with regard to our hospitality, our restaurants, and our tourism sectors. That it is a business-friendly place. We heard this rather directly through the special roundtable we gathered with the Chamber of Commerce and six particular business owners, where we focused exclusively on business economic development and what we can do to help business owners in town, since they are such an important element of our character. And next, we looked at the Yarmouth as a place to play, and we wanted to be, a place where we would envision that it has an abundance of year-round opportunities in recreation, that it has opportunities to socialize through various civic and social clubs and community events. Kathy mentioned St. Patrick's Day Parade and others, for which we have established a significant reputation across the Cape and elsewhere for those kinds of things, and the townspeople appreciate it and want to preserve those things. And that we offer ample public access to our beaches, our waterways, our natural resources, for not only recreation, but for fishing and any other commercial activities that might take place, but primarily as a great place to play. And then finally, we look to have a Yarmouth that's a town that strives for educational excellence, that we want a school district and our public schools to be the best and to be well maintained, all as best we can in a cost-effective way. This is a key element of our annual town meeting. This is a key element in many of Board of Selectmen decisions. And it was echoed loud and clear through our discussions with the community. We want Yarmouth to be a place where it's a place that supports lifelong learning. And certainly through comments we received with regard to the Senior Center, the Cultural Center, the Old Yarmouth Historical Society, all of these places that provide both cultural and educational opportunities. That's what makes Yarmouth special, and we want to continue that. And then finally, the library, our library facilities were mentioned often, and that the need for modernization and their definition as a learning place for everyone. The libraries are an important learning center for every single age group and citizen here in Yarmouth. And we heard loud and clear about, excuse me, the importance of our libraries. So taking all of that, we work towards developing specific goals. One of the again, the challenges that we face is that within these, main categories, we want to be able to state a specific vision statement. So as an example here, under our, Yarmouth is a great place to live. We want to have Yarmouth be a town that improves and protects its environment, its water resources, its open spaces. That's a vision statement with regard to how we want to protect our environment. Well, that's all and good, but what do you mean by that? And so therefore we drilled down some more. We did the kind of the 10,000-foot flyover and said, yeah, that's a good vision to have at 10. So what do you mean by that? Well, what do we mean? These specifics. We want to preserve drinking water, air quality, water resources. We want to promote development placement that protects our water resources and open spaces. And we want to provide, as an example, well-maintained, high-quality open spaces, our beaches and our conservation areas. So that's what we mean when we identify specific goals related to this one statement about how important the vision is about our environment as Yarmouth as a place to live. This then, it's a very kind of linear process here. These goals, the preserve, promote, and provide, then provide the foundation for our second and final survey, where the purpose here is that we went out to the public once. We said, what do you think is important? What are our strengths? What do you think our challenges are? What are your vision statements? And we collaborated and brought all that information in. And now we want to make sure that we heard them correctly. We heard them as best we could. And we're going to ask them again, did we hear everything that you said? And tell us how important each one of these things are to you, because not everything will be important to everybody. And then furthermore, tell us what we missed. And I'll use as a perfect example, tonight, the Hyannis Park Civic Association. The word noise pollution is not in these documents, but it will be now. So as a perfect example, that's where, and we do outreach to all of the civic associations and all of the neighborhood associations. We would encourage members of the Hyannis Park Civic Association to chime in here and tell us, well, when you're talking about the environment, where is noise pollution? And what about the issues associated with the airport, even though it's not located here? So that would be, this is why the second survey, the final one, is so important. We're feeding back to the community. This is what you said was important that we talk about, and how relatively important are these ideas and these goals to you. This, as an example, on this vision survey, I'll just read because it's rather small print. Vision for the environment, again, that Yarmouth would be a place that looks to improve and protect its unique natural environment, its water resources, and its open spaces. So please rate the following goals on how important you feel they are towards helping Yarmouth reach this. How important is preserving drinking water and air quality water resources, etc.? Is it really not that important to you, or is it extremely important? And we also have the don't know. So each one of these goal statements have been converted, if you will, into a questionnaire to establish relative importance. And that questionnaire, although lengthy, I think it deserves the detail it gets. And it will be a great source of information for us moving forward as we finalize this process. And furthermore, I think it will provide, as the Board of Selectmen move forward in establishing their own goals for the town, and with Mr. Lawton and Mr. Rittenhour, we hope that this information will provide some important guidelines on what the community has told us is important to them. And so with that, I'll answer any questions on that part of it. Kathy's going to run through what's next, but I'd be more than glad to entertain any questions about the vision statements, our kind of our vocabulary and our format here, and what we're trying to move forward with.
If you don't mind, Joanne, first of all, thank you, and thank you, Kathy. I do think it would be helpful for the board just to finish the presentation, to go through everything, and
Okay.
then allow board members. I don't want to be doing two sets of questions and two presentations. If we could just
Okay,
finish
sure.
the presentation and then open it up to the board, that would be great.
Certainly.
Well, it's very little left over with regard to the presentation. As Joanne mentioned, we do have our second survey, and we're going to be launching it, and it's going to be available June 1st through July 31st. The planning board is also going to be giving a similar presentation on the vision and goals for the public at their June 16th planning board meeting that is going to start a little bit earlier at 4:30. So the whole goal here is to take the information from the second survey so that we can develop a draft vision plan that we would go out again in the fall for public comment. As Joanne mentioned, that we're going to not be having another survey at that time, but we will be accepting public comment on the draft version of the vision plan with the hopes that we will complete it by the end of the year, and then onward and upward to the local comprehensive plan update. And that's about it.
That's great. And what I'd like to do, if we can pull the slideshow off and get back, okay, here we are, that's great. Before I turn it to the board members, I'd just like to make just one brief comment. And that is just to remind folks, particularly those that might be watching this presentation, that the establishment of this process and doing a visioning process has long been a priority of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen. One of the reasons why we prioritized funding for it is so that we can begin this dialogue with the community to better understand the needs and concerns of the people of Yarmouth. Each board member at various points in time have spoken to the importance of doing this. So I just want to let people know that one of our expectations is at the end of this process, getting a better understanding not only of the vision, but also some of the issues and some of the things that we may need to prioritize or will need to prioritize in the months and years ahead. We also think it's critically important that as the board does that, we're much more in tune with what residents are saying. So this process is vital, not just to the community as a whole, but for individual boards, particularly our board, in terms of the direction that we like to set. So with that, I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing. It is critically important to the town. And let's begin an additional dialogue by starting off with Dan Horgan. Dan, do you have any comments, questions for the for our panel?
I do. Joanne and Kathy, thank you first of all. This is a lot of work. All of the people that have gone behind it. I do have some questions. First one being, we tried to do this survey in the midst of COVID. 470 responses sounds good, but when you match it against our population base, it seems to break out to about 2%. What percentage should we be looking for in terms of responses to have it a viable survey?
I can answer that.
Well, I'm going to let Kathy answer the question more directly for sure, but the survey is not, like a typical polling survey with plus or minus, results being within a certain level of confidence. So quite frankly, I will say I was disappointed with the response. I thought we did as best we could with COVID. We would have liked 1,000. And that's what we're shooting for in the second one. Whether we'll get there, we don't know. But I'll turn it over to Kathy. We were a bit hamstrung because of the situation with outreach. Okay, collaborate.
Yeah, I think, when we were talking earlier, when Mary Maslowski was saying there was like 1,849 people who voted on the ballot, that was to elect 2 Board of Selectmen members. That's very important. And then I'm not sure how many people actually, I might have missed that part, came to town meeting. And those are making huge financial decisions for our community. So the fact that during COVID, we were able to get 470 people to fill out not a super easy survey. You had to think about it and write your answers down in the survey, I think is kind of phenomenal. We did an enormous amount of public outreach. I mean, the number of hours per survey result was staggering that went into publicity to get just one survey response. So even though I agree with Joanne is a little disappointing, I would have think with all that effort, we would have gotten a little bit more. I think the people that we did get were very enthusiastic. The workshops were actually quite fun. We broke out into individual rooms, so to speak, in Zoom, and we're able to have those one-on-one conversations and dialogues with relatively small groups being facilitated by the planning board members. So I think it worked out very well. Hopefully, we will get a few more survey results with regard to the second survey, which is really more of a traditional survey.
Okay, and thank you for that. Please understand I'm not being critical by any means. I'm just concerned that a 2% return, does it really give us a really accurate picture of where the town wants to go? And you've done everything you can in this environment. It's really a matter of people being willing to take the time to fill out the survey. I wonder, did you go out to the schools? Did you go to the senior centers? Obviously, again, with COVID, that probably limited you, but perhaps you'll be able to do that with the second part of the survey.
We had to adapt our normal processes. So we developed little postcards that would be inserted with people when they picked up their library books that talked about visioning. We had the postcards went to the senior center. So when they handed out the lunches and they had the soup lunches, all of those types of things. I did my first code red reverse call to let people know about it. We had things on the community information boards. We had things at the transfer station. We had regular website update, constant contact, social media. We had 2 articles in the paper, multiple press releases, flyers, and Channel 18. So there was an extensive amount. I don't know whether, regardless of COVID, how much you get of a response. You get a certain level of people who are truly interested, and they're going to be the ones who are going to respond to this regardless. I think maybe COVID made people a little more tired and distracted with other things that they were coping with. So taking a town survey may not have come up to the top of their to-do list. But we'll certainly start moving forward with more publicity in a more traditional sense. We'll have hard copies of the survey available at Town Hall and Senior Center, and we'll continue and start all over again with that serious publicity engagement.
I noticed with all the categories that were listed under the various segments, they were all great catch-all items, and I'm not even aware of all the things that Yarmouth provides underneath those. I was wondering, is there any plan going forward to try to fill those out a little bit so that we can visualize what we have now and be able to assess whether we're doing well in this category or we need to improve, much like you were saying, either protect or to promote. I think some of this would be a little bit easier for me to appreciate if we had examples under each of them in terms of what the town provides now. And I think a lot of it just goes, it's unknown. A lot of us don't know exactly what's available here in town. And I'm wondering if this isn't a vehicle that we could perhaps get some of that information out.
I think the better vehicle for that, because the survey, you don't want to put too many words in there because people aren't going to do that. But at the very beginning, one of the things that we did want to do was educate the community on what we do have going on. And we developed data summary sheets on a wide variety of topics. They're on the town website under the community visioning. It talks about community services. It talks about the affordable housing. It talks about the economy and provides some general trends and data information, existing programs and initiatives, what's in the works. So that information is available on the town website. And during the workshops and the survey and different conversations I had with people, they are reading it and they're very thankful to have all of that, because you're absolutely right. People don't know all of the amazing things that are going on in town and all the hard work that's going into so many different programs and services.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Tracy Post.
Thank you. I appreciate all the work. I don't want to say too much because I think that this is a very organic process, and I don't really want our comments or my comments in particular to drive the bus or direction for you. And I think it's very important that you have your the flexibility to explore as much as you can. And I'm confident that you're doing all that you can. And at the end of this process, we'll have the best possible information. It's kind of, it'll be great information for us to make our goals going forward. And, I think a lot about that with what Dan said in the backup information. And it's kind of like what we've done on an annual basis is we set the bones, the structure, the major topics, and then the work plan follows. So I see a lot of that coming into play here. And as you go forward, I'm sure that'll be honed in a little bit, but I'm just very appreciative for the process. I hope more people do get involved, and I'm looking forward to the end result. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Selectman Stone, comments?
Thank you. First of all, I think it's that you had your challenges, that's for sure, during COVID. I mean, can you think of any worse time to try to do a community-wide survey, probably since the Black Plague in the medieval days? People had some immediate concerns like staying alive and getting vaccines and things of that nature. So, you know, the work that but you have to balance that out with what you said, Kathy, and that is there's always going to be a limited number of people that drive the engine. You see that in elections, you see it at town meetings, and you're going to see it in surveys too. That doesn't invalidate the surveys. It just means that those that are civically aware, educated as to what the community needs and resources are, those probably are the people you would most like to hear from. Although we all, I'm sure, would agree that we would like to see greater community input in all of the things that I just mentioned with town meetings, elections, surveys. I know Dan did a lot of work and outreach as town moderator, trying to educate people about town government and get them involved. And maybe that's why he stopped being the town moderator. I don't know, but I'm not surprised at the variety of responses you got initially as to the various aspects of the community. I'm not surprised at all about that. I would have probably predicted most of those responses. Towns are complicated when you start really analyzing them by demographics, age groups, whether people have children, you know, what are seniors looking for, what are working people looking for, what are younger families looking for. I have children that live on the Cape. They have children. I know what the panoply of needs and concerns is. But then the second part of it, you know, you're trying to kind of make all that concrete into some kind of some categories that you can more readily and easily communicate. It's going to be interesting now that you quantify things and you find out what where the weight is of interest. That's really what we all want to find out, what the priorities are. You mentioned a recreation center came up. I know in the 80s and 90s when I was on the rec commission, and I was on there for over 20 years, that was a big priority of ours, but we just couldn't get it going because there were so many other competing things that we're doing. The Bray Farm acquisition, for example, the Bob Lawton Marina that turned out to be a drive-in in the last analysis. All of these things, but almost every major town on the Cape that I can think of has an indoor rec. We have really great outdoor facilities with Flax Pond, Sandy Pond, Bray Farm. The use that we're going to get of the drive-in, you know, as it's a big piece of land. There's unlimited potential there. But we don't have any indoor facilities other than the use that the school gives us of the school facilities, and that's obviously subject to their priorities. When I was involved in rec and we had games and it conflicted with a school concert or something, that was it. I mean, the rec programs were out we didn't have any self-governance, so to speak. I know where Bob comes from, the Gus Canty Center. I was coaching games up there probably 30, 40 years ago. They had an indoor facility. Bourne has one. Barnstable has that new recreational facility with ice rinks and everything else. Mashpee has the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, we are behind the times when it comes to indoor facilities. I'm going to tell you that right now. So It's interesting that that should come back up. I don't know how much, political support it would get or how much support it would get from taxpayers, but we even had the people who built the community center in Harwich. It was Lee Culver, who unfortunately since passed away, but Lee came, he was on the right, he was the driving force behind the Harwich Rec Center, and he came and presented to the Recreation Commission as to what the challenges were and how he got it done and so forth. So I would be very interested to see especially what the younger families think about that, because I think there's a real community need for an indoor recreational facility. And in Harwich, they combined it and made it partially was a rec center, partially was a senior facility. So there's a lot of different options, but I'm grateful for the work that you've done. I hope we can get more people that weigh in now that this thing is ready to be quantified and prioritized. And we'll see what happens from there. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Before we move on, I just want to give you, Joanne, an opportunity for any final comments. I think you're hearing a lot of enthusiasm and support from the board. And again, we know this was a challenge for you. Is there any final words you want to share with us before we move on? We need to unmute yourself there, Joanne.
I just want to thank you again for your support on this, because it really does make a difference. And we'll just keep trying. I mean, my disappointment was not in the effort. I don't know that there was anything more we could have done in terms of reaching out, other than door knocking, which wasn't allowed.
No.
Kathy did an absolutely unbelievable job on this. But we're looking to, this is an easier survey. It's a click through. It's quick. It's, yeah, what do you think? Put it down. It's not handwritten, you're not writing out. So we're just hoping that our optimism is there for this next round. And we'll be back. As soon as we have some more to report back to you, we'll come back with our results. What I would ask any audience I get is anybody any friends you have, please urge them to log on and grab the survey as soon as it's available on June 1st.
That's great. Well, once again, thank you and good night.
Yep, good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda for the board is the board and committee actions. And let me get our materials in front of us here. The first item under board and committee actions is the town administrator has given to the board information on 2 hires, and the reason why this item and the next one are on the agenda is because that the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen under its charter can't actually disapprove of the recommendation with a 4/5 vote. So I've just taken it as a matter of procedure that when these come before the board that we put them on the agenda to see if there's any concern or any questions from board members. So with the Director of Information Technology, before I do this, I don't know, Bob, if there's anything that you'd like to say. If you would, you've got the floor, but if not, that's okay. We can go to the board member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, I'd like to start off with how delighted I am to have the appointment that I made of Mr. Paul Chaffee for the town's Director of Information Technology. And just in a few words, Mr. Chaffee comes to us with over 20 years of progressive, very high-level experience in the corporate IT world. Most recently, he was the Director of IT Infrastructure at the Nike Corporation in Boston that has a network that makes the town of Yarmouth's network seem like a peanut. He has a very strong intellectual capacity, we feel, to help us set the direction and tone and manage the town's IT moving forward across a very broad range of applications. So we were happy to make that appointment, and he's in front of you now.
That's great. Do any board members have any questions for Bob? Tracy, did you?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. We approve the town administrator's recommendations with relation to the IT director and the assistant DPW director.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. There's no second. Let me turn the, let me ask Selectman Horgan. I believe he wants to, seeks recognition.
Just sound guys. My only question is, could we deal with these separately? I'd like to at least ask some questions with regard to the second appointment, but I'm ready to vote on the IT director.
I have a question on the IT director.
Okay, Mr. Stone.
It says down here is education. It says Clark University. You know, usually it says your year of graduation, what you majored in. Do you have any information on that?
I don't know his year. My understanding was that he was a financial related major over there, but I'm not sure what the year was.
Okay, I see he worked at Nike most of his career in different capacities. So if you say just do it, does he just do it or what?
He'll just do it is right. And I was happy to see that, you know, he was actually the sneaker king because he started over at Converse. And
Okay.
but I was extremely impressed with the size of the facilities he managed, and you know, in charge of all of the strategic decisions for that. So you know, I think he's at a point in his career where you know, he's winding things down, and this is you know, hopefully almost like a you know, giving back to the community, and I think it'll be great.
Mr. Stone, any other?
No, I was just curious. I mean, like I said, normally people would put their year of graduation, what they majored in. I just saw Clark University is kind of interested in that.
Okay. So is there a motion that someone would like to make to endorse this candidate?
Can I make a motion to approve the appointment of the IT director?
Second.
I'm not sure that we need a vote to approve these. I think the way the charter is worded, that if the appointment's fine, then the appointment's fine, but the board can reject the appointment.
Right.
So that's the only thing I think encounters in there, and it's a 4/5 vote to reject any appointment.
So I don't see any motion to reject the appointment. Therefore, I would entertain a motion though to endorse the appointment, even though it's not. Anybody want to?
Motion to endorse.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Horgan?
Aye.
That's an aye. Tracy Post?
Aye.
Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Congratulations to our new IT. The next item. Before I go to the board, let me just our town administrator.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chairman, and I'm very happy here to approve the recommendation of our DPW Director, Jeff Colby, and the entire interview team who voted unanimously in recommending to me Roby Whitehouse to be appointed as the Assistant Director of Public Works. And Ms. Whitehouse has over 22 years experience directly with the town of Yarmouth. She's been the superintendent of the sanitation department for the last 2.5 years. And she had some stiff competition from some external candidates that actually didn't, possess the level of experience that she had. And I think that was the overriding factor. And, we've already worked to have her involved in some additional supervisory training so that she can grow into the position. And I know Director Colby and I will be following her progress very closely. And we're happy to have another female manager here in town. It's always a very positive step, and I'm excited to have her on board.
I have a procedural question. And that is are both positions have a probationary period? Could you explain that, Bob?
Yes, that is correct. Both positions, the IT director, I think is under the non-union, and the assistant director of public works is the SEI unit, have a 1-year probationary period.
That's helpful. The other question I have is, and again, it's procedural. Is it common to have in a management? It's not unusual in Yarmouth, but with this position, when it was created, did we envision it being from the very beginning a union position as opposed to a management position? I know you weren't here, but I'm just curious.
I would say as an assistant director that it is very common for that level to still be in a union. I've seen it out, but I would say when there are the administrative units that, there are sometimes you get the actual department head that is in the unit as well. And in our case, it just extends to the assistant. So I would not say that's out of keeping, with this type of union.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Horgan.
Can you kill your sound? I guess the first question I have is, from what I could understand, the job description was drafted in February of 21. Is that the case? And if it is the case, was there a job description, right? So there wasn't a job description before this.
I don't believe so.
Okay. I don't know Roby myself really well. Everybody I've talked to about Roby loves her. And, when I looked at the job description and her qualifications,
it seemed to me that, it was really kind of a close call. Perhaps she,
didn't quite reach some of the requirements that we were looking for. I looked at the information from the other two candidates that were interviewed, and I don't think they measured up at all to the requirements of the position. So I had some concerns when I first looked at this. As I said, everybody I know that I've talked to about Roby loves her. The staff that I've talked to are very, very supportive. They say that she has worked extremely hard to get herself into this position, that she is extremely intelligent and hardworking, and works well with others, and has the ability to manage others. It just, I was concerned, I guess, that so much of her history and experience has been on the sanitation side, and there's so much to DPW that goes beyond that. So I had concerns. I weigh that against the idea that I love the idea of having another female in a leadership role like that. I love the idea of hiring from within and inspiring our staff to go after these types of positions and improve themselves. I'm comforted a little bit by the fact that we have a probationary period to work with here to make sure that Roby can work herself into the position and receive the kind of training and guidance that she needs to do a good job. So though I had concerns at the beginning, especially after talking with people on the interview panel and Jeff and some of the other senior staff, I am supportive of giving Roby this chance. And I hope this is a signal to really all of our staff that, you know, we value them. We value the fact that they continue to try and improve themselves and try to reach for higher goals and aspirations. So I really, I guess, applaud the fact that our other staff and new town manager have recognized in Roby this real strong desire and ability and willingness to learn and, you know, grow into a position. So thank you for educating me, and I really look forward to getting to know Roby better, and I wish her well in this new position.
Okay, Tracy, any comments? No. Mr. Stone?
I was looking at the job description and aside from the experience not being broad-based enough, I have those same concerns about most of the experience being in the landfill area. It says bachelor's degree in public or business administration, civil engineering, or park or open space administration. Does she meet that educational requirement?
I do not believe so. She has a associate's.
Did the other candidates, were they under that level as well? Education?
The situation was when you take a look at the other candidates, for instance, you had one fellow that had a bachelor's in maritime, business, which, it's not related, but it's a bachelor's and it shows rigor. The problem was when you weigh the experience, very limited municipal government experience, especially in the supervisory DPW related areas. So it's very true. This is, the educational level, it was not up to where we had preferred to be at first. And I do think this position is a big step up for Ms. Whitehouse, but with her experience here in town and her willingness to learn, she's already been enrolled in some additional supervisory training. And, I guess the feeling overall comparing the education versus the experience, as interestingly as it was that Ms. Whitehouse's experience in the areas of DPW was actually much higher than the other finalists that we saw. And I think that really was probably an overriding factor from the team. I wasn't there for the original interviews, but I have met with the whole team and we've discussed this many times.
Mr. Stone, any other comments?
No, nothing further.
Okay. I understand the reservations and the concerns, and also some of the very positive things that have been said. I think at this point, I don't see 4 votes to disapprove. So I think this is a position that, unless the board wants to make a motion or make a statement on this, I think I'm happy to entertain a motion. But I think at this point, unless there's a motion by any board member,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Even though there was a vote on the previous position, I think Mr. Whitnauer is right. I believe the way the statute reads, the appointment goes through unless there is a 4/5 negative vote by the board taking to basically override the appointment.
Okay.
So unless somebody wants to make a motion to override the appointment, I think that's all that's relevant here.
Okay. Well noted. Okay,
I mean, the other endorsement, I'm not saying there was anything wrong, but it's mostly symbolic.
right. I understand. I understand. I appreciate that.
Well, I'd go on the record and make a motion. I wholeheartedly support Roby for Assistant DPW Director, and if it's not seconded, that's fine. I think that this has been a disservice, having this conversation in public when you don't, I mean, we don't do this for everybody. It's like we're picking and choosing who we're doing it for, and it's.
No, but you raise a great point, Tracy, going forward. We did do it with respect to Dan Knapik's appointment of an assistant town administrator. I think going forward on all of these division head appointments, we should automatically put it on the agenda. We should automatically, without asking, get the resumes of the people that are being selected and the job descriptions at a minimum.
Well, and I'm fine with that. I think we should have that information, but barring no motion, there's no motion on the floor to disapprove. We're
That's
having a
correct.
conversation. We're having a conversation that's a disservice really to the talent that we have. And, you know.
Although in theory, there could have been a motion. How do you know?
There could have been, but
You
there
don't know
isn't.
there's going to be a motion until you get here.
That's fine, but to have a discussion about your reservations and all this, now we have a longtime employee, okay, that we had a whole conversation about, and you know, we want her to step into a position and have the utmost respect and you know, support from this board, and we have a whole conversation about, well, you know, I mean, you know, it's a disservice. If there's no motion, I think we should be very cognizant of that and the position that we now just put her in. As if she's
I would respectfully
qualified.
disagree,
And you know
Tracy.
what? The people who recommended her are very qualified as
I
well.
think the charter gives this authority to the Board of Selectmen for a reason. And that is that they're not willing to make division head appointments an automatic thing upon the decision of the town administrator. If they did, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this discussion. I think it should be expected. And I think it should be expected for all of division head appointments going forward. I see nothing wrong with it at all. I think we owe that to the public. I don't think there was anything disrespectfully said. We're asking about documents of public information about job descriptions, resumes, levels of experience.
I don't think it's disrespectful. I just think
You can ask, you know, if somebody asked me those questions about me in my capacity, my professional capacity, or working for the town, I would have no objection. I'm sure there'd be criticisms. I'm sure there'd be suggestions. I'm sure there's ways I can become better in what I do. I wouldn't be defensive about it at all.
Okay.
But go ahead, criticize me, all of you.
No, I'd like to
Open
move
forum.
on. I'd like to move on to the next agenda item. And that is committee appointments. And I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to Mr. Horgan and ask him to make a presentation. You set?
Sorry about that. Mr. Chairman, I'd make a recommendation to appoint Mr. Paul Kippets as a regular member to the Recycling and Solid Waste Advisory Committee. The appointment is for a 3-year term.
To run through May 2024.
Do I have a motion? I move the appointment. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call vote, say aye. Dan Horgan,
Aye.
Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Poe,
Aye.
chair votes aye.
Next, Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we appoint
Mr. Jay Crabtree is a regular member to the Golf Enterprise Committee. The appointment's for a 3-year term, which will run through April.
You can't hear him.
actually should be May 2024.
I can't hear him either.
Yeah, Mark, you got it.
I'm sorry.
To appoint Mr. Jay Crabtree as a member, regular member to the Golf
Enterprise Committee the appointments for a 3-year term to run through May 2024.
So moved.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Who was that nomination for?
Jay Frappery.
Go ahead.
Okay, did you say May of 2024?
Sorry, Mike. The gentleman's name is J. Frank Frappery.
Yes, but did you say the appointment would be through May of 2024?
Yeah, I'm amending it. It should be,
We're
we're
in May
in
now.
now. It needs to be 3-year term.
Can't hear you.
The term is 3 years to run through May 2024.
Okay, because the document says April. That's incorrect?
It is incorrect.
Okay, thank you.
So who made the motion? Tracy, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Mike Stone.
Aye.
Trustee Post. Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman. Thank you.
Are you all set? Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is upcoming agenda review, and I'm going to ask Bob Rittenauer to update us on what's happening at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Things are changing very rapidly in that this is an extraordinarily busy season and everyone's coming out of their bunkers into spring. And so we've got a few changes next week. We don't have a meeting, but June 8th is the next meeting. And we start with our COVID-19 update. And then we also have on for June 8th, the reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. Then there's a public hearing on the transfer of an in-holder all alcohol for the Compass Rose to the Chapter House. The Riviera Beach Resort after that has a change of manager public hearing, another public hearing for an entertainment license of a wedding at Taylor Bray Farm. Actually, 2 of those right in a row for Taylor Bray. And we have tentatively scheduled a hearing to discuss the extension of the outdoor dining that's related to COVID-19 past the August 15th date. Now, the governor has signaled that he's considering an executive order that may address that topic, but we want to be prepared so that if there's any delay in having that the establishments with outdoor dining just don't stop automatically on August 15th. So that's an item that will need some consideration. And then obviously we're bringing back the ambulance fee increase hearing. And we do have the Taylor Bray Farm update, but keep in mind that our major item of business there is to give them some recognition on their 20th anniversary. And so we're kind of calling them in for an update. It's more of a surprise party. So we're going to have to come up with some appropriate recognition there. The Cape Cod Commission was scheduled for an update. And another new item, what we want to put on June 8th is to give the Board of Selectmen a first look. This Thursday is the deadline for all of the proposals on the RFP for the drive-in site. And we want to come in with a matrix of, what types of events, what dates, and give the board a flavor for that, and hopefully be able to achieve a consensus in inviting certain of the proposers in for hearings to get licenses that, they'll need, in some cases, alcohol, I think in all cases, entertainment licenses. And we are looking at potentially a special meeting on June 29 to have those public hearings on the drive-in. So what we're looking at for June is potentially having the June 8 meeting, and then we go to June 22 and then have a June 29 for some of the drive-in permitting issues. On the 22nd, after our COVID update, We have some more public hearings. There's the Yarmouth Seaside Festival entertainment license, and there's also a transfer of all alcoholic from Doyle's to Crazy Rooster. And I know they have their sign up already, and love that name. And the ambulance fee increase, their second hearing. We've got the Cape Light Compact scheduled on the 22nd for an update. Also, a review of the team that's been working on the town seal. And also, there's an item on there tentatively now new for the Yarmouth Scholarship recipients. And another item we have waiting in the wings potentially for a June meeting is to get an update from the water department on our current drought conditions. We hope to have had several inches of rain by then, and making the aquifer full again. But that's an item we've been briefed on, and I think board members have seen some information, and it may require some additional water restrictions. And that's a flavor of what's happening in June.
Can we just stop right there for a second, Bob? June 8th, how long do you think that meeting, just curious, I think we should come to that meeting expecting it to be a long night. It looks like a very busy night to me.
Yeah, unless we want to reschedule some of the updates or something like that. It does look like a pretty long night.
I just want to just put that out there. I'll be prepared to for a long night. I just want to just sort of flag it because it looks like it's going to go for a while.
I want to start early.
Yeah, or we could start early. Is the board comfortable starting maybe that meeting early? I know we're not expecting an executive session. Any thoughts about starting early on that? Because it's going to be long. I mean, I see, I've had this discussion with staff before. These things just have to be done. It's not like we can postpone them. Most of them really will have to be done. Mr. Stone? Mike? I mean, many of these fall under sort of your
Yeah, I think if, the advertising, I don't even know if it's gone out, but usually these things are noticed for 6 o'clock. So the licensing hearings will probably not be able to be conducted prior to that, but I'm looking at these hearings, and the first one's a transfer of a license, so that shouldn't be very long. And then we have a change of manager. That should be quick. A special alcohol for 2 weddings should be relatively short hearings. So I don't think that the licensing hearings will be as ominous as they look.
Okay.
Usually the wedding licenses, there's nobody objecting to them or anything because it's kind of an out of the way place.
We could do the Board of Health, the reorganization, and the Cape Cod Commission update first, and then just end with all the hearings.
If you went early, you could do that and then do the licensing afterwards.
Let me ask Bob, how long do you think you're also adding in the first look at the drive-in proposals? How long do you think? I mean, that could be a night into itself.
Is that going to be on the 8th?
That's what he's suggesting. Yeah. And
that will take, the drive-in proposals would take some time, I think.
Yeah. So I think Tracy had a very good idea. Start with the Cape Cod Commission, do some of the other things, get them done early. We probably have to start our meeting at least 5:30, maybe 5 o'clock.
Or we could set aside another day. We're not meeting with June 15th.
Well, I think, let me just sort of, Bob Rittenauer, tell me if I'm wrong here, but we need to do the first look at the drive-in applications on June 8th, correct?
Correct.
And we have all those license hearings that we'll really have to do those.
We have to do those because of the ads.
Right.
Sorry.
No, we can't bump Taylor Bray because that's their 10th year. That's the anniversary. That's the date. And so, surprise, surprise. So we have to do that then. So
Well, we'll just pack dinner.
there you go. Or we'll order in. The outdoor dining, I do think people are genuinely interested in what we're going to do on that. So we've got to have that on the agenda. The only item that can be spared is, once again, you know, I've been kicking this can down the road for a while, and I know some people are probably upset about it, but the Cape Cod Commission, maybe that can be put off yet again. Unless there's a, but I still think we're gonna need the extra time to just do all the stuff that we've got separate from the Cape Cod Commission. Bob Lawton?
On the outdoor dining, the only thing there is, by then we'll know if we have 5 or 6 people who want to do it. The hearing is not going to be tentatively until the 29th.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of advertising to do. What we tried to do, we sent out an email asking those who already have special permission if they want to continue that.
All right.
And we have most of those back. So the 8th was simply to say, by the way, on the 29th, we're going to have 6 hearings.
Yeah.
You don't have to take any action on the outdoor. Now, all of that may change if the governor and the legislature decide to extend all of this stuff.
Right.
But I think when I talked to Mr. Stone, it's better to be proactive on something like this rather than wait. And then comes August, oh, I guess we have to have 6 or 7 hearings. So on the 8th, that'll be very short.
Did any of the people who currently hold outdoor licenses indicate that they did not want to extend them?
No, sir. The only one, there is one, I think it was Oliver's is the only one that hasn't responded. Everybody else would like to be considered to continue the outdoor service of alcohol.
I think there's roughly 10 businesses that are affected, that's all.
The only ones we had were 6, so it would be 7 with Oliver's. Yes, sir.
Is that all, 7?
Yep. Only because you took action on the Old Yarmouth Inn. That's done and out.
That's done.
And then Captain Parker's, I'm going to check. He would like to continue. I thought you'd already provided some approval.
I think Captain Parker's is either got a variance of.
I think he did.
Because he doesn't have the proper setback. So he got a variance by the building commissioner. So he's either got to move those tents back.
Right.
Or he's got to go before the Board of Appeals.
Yep. So that's what we're looking at for that. So I think you're into 6 or 7 just for that one item. And that's simply a quick update. And I think as Bob Rittenauer had said on the drive-in, that's something to say, I think we had 5 or 6, let's say 5 applications. There's been a staff review. And they would also, if the dates work, we'd have that hearing on the 29th, only because, again, of advertising.
Sure.
So I think those are just updates, no decision for issuing the licenses on either of the drive-in or on the outdoor service on the 8th. It's simply to make sure the board is okay that we proceed.
Okay.
And as Bob said, the governor may extend, that hiatus on outdoor dining, and we might not have to do anything.
He filed a bill today to do that.
Say that, Tracy.
He filed a bill today to do that.
Oh, did they? Okay. That would be good.
And I think in the bill that was filed was the additional extension for remote participation in public meetings.
Through September 1, I think.
Right. So that's part of his legislation as well, to give towns and other public bodies the opportunity to do these kinds of meetings through the summer, if they decide. So unless someone wants to change the time or I'm comfortable just sticking with this lineup. I'm just warning people, we may go instead of, I like to end meetings around 9, but we may be going until 10 o'clock.
I think we can do it. I think we can go through these licensing hearings pretty quickly.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
I think the big challenge will be the drive-in proposals. Hopefully there won't be too many.
Okay, very good. And I like the idea of the water update. My hope is that we can at some point as a board grab like 4 dates in the course of a year where we do water specifically at those meetings. And while we have these other things to do, I think water has just become so important as an issue for the town. We have this very robust, as I like to use the word, robust.
What? You're pulling out the word.
Robust. It's a robust plan. There's a lot of work to be done. I do think our meetings can at least be a vehicle to help people be kept abreast of what's going on, including the board, of course.
We saw the article in the paper today. I mean, water levels are down on the Cape, and other
Right.
towns are, including Falmouth, are taking, implementing water conservation efforts. So we may have to do something
Right.
depending on Mother Nature.
One of the things that I thought was interesting about water conservation is that the water conservation measures recommended in Brewster, Harwich, Chatham, and Orleans were based on recommendations from the water superintendents in those towns. And they all monitor the health of the Monomoy lens. That's that portion of the aquifer that they take water from. And they monitored the levels, and they saw that the levels were significantly below what they should be. And so collectively, they made that decision. I believe in the memo that I circulated that I asked from DPW, and Laurie sent it around. In that memo that she sent, she made she identified which of the wells draw water from the Monomoy lens, and which of our wells draw water from the Sagamore lens. And so on the Sagamore lens, you're going to start seeing Falmouth. Falmouth draws water from the Sagamore lens of the aquifer, as does Mashpee, Bourne, and Sandwich. And I think in very short order, you'll be seeing the rest of those towns doing the same thing. So I think it's very appropriate, very timely.
Yeah, it is.
And it should be a very good discussion. So
I think we only have 2 wells that draw from the Monomoy lens, the ones on North Dennis Road. I think everything else comes from the Sagamore lens.
yes,
So
Yes.
we'll be in with those towns you just mentioned in terms of
yes,
their status.
that's good. So I think this is good. I don't think we need to go over. Does any board member want to bring up another agenda item that should be added to the agenda? Mr. Horgan?
Now, did you,
That
Nate?
date.
Earlier this evening, we had a good letter read to us from Hyannis Park Association regarding the airport development and the master plan. I, for one, am concerned about my own understanding and knowledge, breadth of knowledge, as far as where we stand currently with the airport, and where we are with contaminants, noise, traffic. I'd like to suggest that we make an agenda item relatively soon on the topic of the airport expansion. And I don't know, whether it's appropriate to just ask our own staff to do a review and give us an update in terms of how the airport is impacting us currently and what their projections might be, or do we need to go further than that and possibly consider a consultant? We're talking about major impacts with an expansion to an airport that with larger jets will have more effect on more and more Yarmouth citizens. And I still don't know what the current status is of contaminants and plumes and other issues that the airport creates for Yarmouth citizens. And I think we really need an update and an opportunity to kind of talk amongst one another and come up with a position, I guess, in terms of the master plan and where Yarmouth's leadership stands on it. I think the letter was articulate that was read by Hyannis Park, and I think we have to do our own due diligence and find out some of these answers and put together our own position paper to bring into the airport. So I throw that out and wonder if other select board members would be interested in trying to get some more information, whether it be from a consultant or asking our own staff.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I thoroughly agree with you, Dan, and I'm thinking from what I know about this that we're going to need a professional, a consultant, somebody who's done these kind of studies and evaluated them and knows how to move through the administrative channels, which it's going to be very, very important. That decision ultimately can be made as we deliberate, but I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to end up ultimately. but I would like to see that put forth on an agenda. And I thought that was a very coherent, direct statement that they made about their concerns. And if I were living in that area, I'd probably have the same concerns too.
Well, I guess my frustration with this is certainly something that is of regional impact. You know, this is to me something exactly the rationale for why a Cape Cod Commission is created. When it doesn't go through processes in our own town, I feel like they should be there to protect us. I'm assuming it's a DRI, but I don't know. If it is, I'm sure all those studies and information will be brought forward to the commission. And I think they should be. I think the commission's role is to protect people from outside those town lines that don't have a say. So that's the first thing I think I'd like to look at and make sure that there's a process there and that they're gonna be listening to our residents. Obviously Barnstable's looking at the financial aspect of it for them, and I get that. But oftentimes we have developments within Yarmouth that only affect Yarmouth, and yet they get involved. And here's a classic example of something that affects somebody else. So that's my first frustration with this. I feel like they're not stepping up. They should be the ones stepping up to protect us in this case. The other thing is there was a mention some time back about recreating our committee. We had an airport committee that was effective. I know that they were instrumental in getting a member of Yarmouth on their board. I think that we're going to need a point person to, or point people or a group to sift through this. So I think that when we have the discussion, which Dan brought up, and I think it's a valuable one, I'm grateful for all the citizens that are involved, but it affects more than just Hyannis Park. It affects a huge section of West Yarmouth over by Bayberry. I'm not sure about the expansion, but anyway, in any event, I think we should consider a charge to look at that meeting, or re-pull out the charge that we had from previous committee, which was years ago, and really start getting back on this.
Right. Well, I've said this before at prior meetings that I'm in favor of all of the points that have been made. And I've been anxious to as well have some discussion on this. I think the help we're going to need from the administrator is going to be in terms of the kind of staff support assigned to this or consultant support. I would love to see the town of Yarmouth put together a very thoughtful position on the master plan and to be able to identify where we see real impacts to Yarmouth, both noise, but also other impacts, positive and negative. I appreciate the comments about runoff from the runway and to the extent to which there could be additional contamination or runoff. That runway is right next to Yarmouth. It comes up right by our town line. And I think those are very legitimate, very clear concerns. My worry is that empowering a volunteer committee, let's call it just for the sake of discussion, an airport master plan review committee to advise us or to help draft a set of findings and recommendations. For them to expect volunteers to do that is a huge exercise. So it does require staff and or consultant support. And that's a question that I hope we have an answer to, that we have some answers to it when we bring it up as a board as soon as we can. So I'd like to put this out there as an agenda item that we raise. We have to deal with this in June. All right, we have to figure out a way to slide this discussion either or we have a separate meeting, and I'm all in favor of a separate meeting to discuss this if that's necessary. June 15th is a date that's open. I'm happy to put that up as a date to meet and discuss this. And I have no problem myself with it being a single item. I'm not sure how we can fit it in the others, but I'll let our town administrator work on that. But I agree with everybody that we need to deal with this. But I think a committee could be very effective if it can rely on staff and other technical experts. You know, what are the impacts? What should be the mitigation? What alternatives should be considered? I'd like more information on the costs. I mean, that airport is losing a ton of money. And we understand that they're looking to make changes in order to recover funds, but I'd like to see some of those assumptions critically looked at. You know, and I don't see how that proposal works. Now, to be fair, Katie Service, the airport manager, has offered to come by us and to make a presentation to us. So I think that needs to be also part of it. That's why I think this might have to be a separate board meeting. And Katie Service has offered to come here with their consultants to give the board a presentation. And, you know, that could be a meeting where we also invite, we maybe advertise her to get the word out enough so that we have enough Yarmouth residents participate in that discussion as well. So we can further learn and hear more from residents. So I agree with everything that Dan has said, that you have said, Tracy, and you, Mike. I'm totally on board with this. This has got to be a priority. And I think we've sort of vented to the town administrator. Now, I think it would be great, Bob, to come back with us with some recommendations on how we put this all together. Yarmouth has got some great residents who volunteer for committees. When we were dealing with the Vineyard Wind questions, there were a ton of people that came out of West Yarmouth, and they did an incredible amount of research and work. I'm sure some of those folks would be willing to help out here. What I don't want to do is just rely on them and try to take full advantage of. I'd like to take full advantage of them, but I don't want to overwhelm them, let's say. You know, I mean, they need some help and they'll need some support. And I would like to have something on the record from our board outlining our concerns with respect to that airport. Someone had mentioned, I think someone mentioned in public comments that maybe there may be a need to file legislation so that there's additional membership on the airport board. I mean, they're now calling themselves a regional gateway airport. Well, guess what? We're part of the gateway, whether we want to be or not. So I think that certainly should be an item on the table as well for discussion. So those are my thoughts. I agree with everyone. I think this is going to keep on coming up at every agenda at every meeting from now on, I think, until we can really start digging into this and moving this whole topic forward. I think it's a fair statement. So there you go. There's an agenda item that you've got unanimity here on, and hopefully we can find a way to slide it into June. The plan is to finish up the master plan this summer. So they want to have a final document this summer before the summer ends. So the clock is running and we don't want it to run out on us. Now, that doesn't mean that everything in the master plan will be funded, but at least it'll give us an idea of the projects that are being proposed and what our issues and concerns are. And hopefully we'll have at least some opportunity to have a say. So I just sort of lay that out there, Bob. Do you want to respond or react to it? Is it yet another overwhelming item that we're sort of dropping on your lap?
No, let's look into it and move it forward. We'll have to have some internal discussions and maybe come up with a plan.
Yeah, but I think you get a sense of the seriousness with which the board's taking all this.
I would like to know the commission's role as well.
Well, Katie, not Katie Service, but we've got Christy Senatori coming in on our meeting on the 8th,
Yeah.
right? So should we tell her to wear her flak jacket? And
Well, I mean, I think it's a valid question to ask what the process is to bring Yarmouth in.
Right.
I
agree with you completely. I agree with you completely. So we should let Christy know that we're expecting her in her presentation to the Yarmouth board to tell her all the things that she can do to help Yarmouth critically evaluate this particular project and understand fully its impacts on the surrounding communities. Tracy's right. It's a development of regional impact. And we're looking for results. All right. So there's an agenda item. So anything else for upcoming agenda review? All right. Hearing nothing else. Let's go zip around on individual items. Mike Stone.
Well, first of all, I would like to commend all of the voters who showed up at that town meeting we just had on Saturday, which was, putting it mildly, unorthodox. I've never been at a town meeting before where it rained on the membership. And when given the opportunity to recess the meeting, they surprisingly said, no, we want to go forward. So we have the ones that showed up are of good stock, and they're tough Cape Cod people. It was the first time we tried something like this with all the great weather we've been having, and we're in the middle of a drought. When you know it would rain on the day that we chose, but who would know that? I think that all things considered, we got a fairly good crowd. I didn't expect big numbers because of COVID and because of the weather. When I went out that morning, I don't know, it was approximately 5:30 or so, it was raining, and I said, oh, they're not going to come. And a lot of people came late. But the one thing I was talking to Dan about, and we probably in the foreseeable future won't be having any outdoor meetings or Saturday meetings. But if we do, I don't think people really want to, on their day off, go to an early meeting. I really don't. I think if we had delayed the start time a little bit, maybe so around 10 o'clock or so, I think we would have got, I'm not saying we'll get huge numbers, but I think we would have got more participation. That would be the only suggestion that I had. But other than that, I think everybody did a good job. I think the board, the committees, the finance committee, the speakers, the voters, the people that checked everybody in, I think everybody did a good job considering what we had to deal with. So I was really happy to, and Tracy expedited it by changing the methodology from going a page at a time, like A1 through A16, to saying, why don't you move the whole budget? Why don't you move the whole budget? And we did. And we kind of hastened it up a little bit there too. But I
I
think
was
all
told,
things
like I said,
considered,
if you guys were in skirts, you would have done that too.
I think all things considered, we did well. I do. And it was good to get it behind us and to go forward from here. I would like to see us recognize Taylor Bray Farm. I think I won't say you're going to, but you may get some resistance in terms of getting them to come forward. They're a very modest group. They don't really like recognition. So I think there's going to have to be a concerted effort to get some representatives down to town hall to be recognized. But I'll say it again. I mean, these people take care of that farm as if it were their own, and they feed those animals 365 days a year. They care for them, Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays. There's no end to it. And we have a wonderful resource there. And, a large part of that is because of this association that takes care of the farm, and none of them get paid. They don't get any paid, probably very little recognition, but they're a great group of people. And I hope we can do something so that we bring some attention to their hard work and their dedication and their many sacrifices that they make for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Tracy?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Horgan?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay. I too want to thank everybody for helping out with the town meeting. I also want to note Pat Armstrong and all the behind the scenes work that she continually does, and she did there as well. It's amazing that it came together as well as it did, in spite of the rain. And obviously the Yarmouth voters, Mike, I think you said it right, that they stepped up, and I very much appreciate the votes. I know it wasn't a huge turnout. I know we all would like to see more voters show up, but I want to thank the folks that did. And the support for the ballot questions was incredibly important. And I very much appreciate those votes as well. So a big shout out to the voters of the town of Yarmouth for their participation in the election and at town meeting. So those are my comments. The next item on the agenda is the town administrator items. The consent agenda is the first one.
I move the consent agenda.
Do I have a
We
second?
need a special motion on the work relief for Meg.
Is that a question for me, Tracy, or are you looking at from Bob?
From Bob.
A separate motion on what? I didn't understand what you said.
To allow the extension for Meg Corporation.
For that consent, no, I mean, if you approve that through the consent agenda, that's fine.
Okay, move the consent agenda.
Okay, second? I'll second. Okay,
Third, fourth, fifth.
you like that? We've been working on that. Wow, the meeting's been going on. All right, we have a motion on the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Mike Stone,
Aye.
Tracy Post,
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Very, very good. The motion carries. Town administrator items, reopening update.
Yes, I want to confirm with board members that we are prepared in our town offices and services to reopen in conjunction with the governor's order, which his order takes effect over the weekend, which is on May 29, and Tuesday right after Memorial Day on June 1. We'll have our town services restored. The town hall will be open. I really want to thank our team that we had a lot of department heads on the reopening task force. We had labor representatives from SEIU that had some great suggestions. But, most importantly, members of the Board of Health actually attended our meetings, updated us on all of the thought process, and Bruce Murphy did a great job. He and I spent the day last Friday doing the walkthroughs of all of our town buildings and meeting with department heads, and we've been allaying concerns and just going through what the facts are and the statistics. So we're really happy to be opening things up again. And our next step now is we're going to work on all of our public informational output. I think some of the things that we did this evening helped cement the final arrangements that we needed to make. And so we'll be doing the public outreach campaign, and folks are ready for it. They've been lining up outside of town hall for weeks now, getting their stickers. And the town employees, I just want to say, have really missed. These people are professionals. They deal with the public. Nobody wants to be locked up inside a town hall and fearful or anything like that. So we finally reached that point. So we're very happy to see that. And that's our reopening update.
That's great. Any questions by the board members? Okay, hearing none. Let's go on to the next item. The last item is the town administrator updates. Any other updates for us, Mr. Rittenauer?
Well, everyone's already talked about the town meeting, but I really just need to, thank that so many people participated in all of the various details of making that process work. It was a lot harder in a pandemic with the outdoor meeting. Everything's the first time we've done a lot of this stuff, but people's attitudes was just so great. And I can't say enough about Pat Armstrong. She was sort of our quarterback on a lot of the logistics of it. And, she really gave it her all. And I just couldn't be more delighted. She kept us updated. She covered so much ground. So I'm very, very happy about that. I want to mention also on another topic, not to take too much more of your time, but Chairman Mark Forrest and I had worked on, we were directed to pull together a piece of correspondence from the Board of Selectmen over to the town of Dennis to highlight some of the issues and prepare for the fall. And so members have that correspondence. I hope to get some feedback soon this week. So what we're thinking is we'd like to get that correspondence out so that it gives the officials over in Dennis enough time to, really consider it in their open session. And when we meet next, and I think it's set for June 18 with the, the 3 towns for DHY, that we hope we can get some real clear direction and consensus and things like that. So huge thanks to Mark for, some of his edits, just really tighten that up. I think it's a very nice letter, and any feedback board members have, I know we're anxious to receive before we take the next step. So thank you for that. And I think we've got plenty of other things to keep us busy reviewing the upcoming agenda. So we'll get right on it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go
Was
right
that
ahead.
June 18th dates firm?
The June 18th for the DHY meeting?
Yeah.
I would say is like, how firm is it? It hasn't been completely scheduled yet, but I have a tattoo on my forearm that says 18, but I think we need to get everyone else on the same page.
It's been set as a tentative date. I think unless something happens, there'll be a meeting proposed and people will be getting invitations.
Okay.
Well, we haven't had a relationship long enough to have matching tattoos yet, but maybe next.
Build up.
There you go. Matching tattoos. Put that on as an agenda. Yes, Mr. Lawton.
Just one quick update on Memorial Day.
Yes.
It's just that there is going to be a ceremony here. Maureen Toby Bedford has put a lot of work into this, and it is going to be the drive-by honor that we did, I think, last year. So May 31st, 11 a.m. and lining up vehicles according to the memo she sent to Bob and to me is at 10:45 in front of Town Hall. So don't want people to forget about that.
That's terrific.
Coming fast.
Thank you. You're right. It is. And thanks for mentioning that. I know that's an item of considerable interest. Very good. Are there any other items to discuss under town administrator items or updates? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. The second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on the motion to adjourn. Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Ms. Post.
Aye.
Mr. Horgan.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all your help, and good night, everyone.
Thank you. Peace.
Good night.
Bye-bye.